What's up? Welcome into the latest Pod Like a Champion, the blueandgold.com recruiting podcast. I'm Patrick Engel, blueandgold.com Notre Dame beat writer, joined as always by our recruiting insider, Mike Singer. Mike, how you doing? How was your 4th of July?
It was good. Bought a house here in Atlanta, so
Oh,
just
okay.
been doing a lot of cleaning. And I got this in the mail. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'm holding up, as you can see, our Blue and Gold Illustrated 2020 football preview. If you're listening to us on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast, I'm sorry, but I'm holding up my 2020 football preview. So go to bluegoldonline.com and you can order yours. I believe it's $12.95 plus shipping. And it's a full glossy action. The cover looks great. Got the 5 starting offensive linemen on there. So get your copy of the football preview, please, because it's loaded. We've got position previews, opponent previews, looking at the 2020 class, the 2021 recruiting review. It's got it all. It's a great football preview. I couldn't be more excited about getting it today.
160 pages jammed with Notre Dame football content from recruiting, team previews, a lot of features on some of the guys that we expect to play a major role in shaping what Notre Dame's season is really going to do. Didn't have a commitment on the 4th of July, so thankfully we were spared from those team gets fireworks on 4th of July commit headlines. But nonetheless,
we had that last year. Caleb Offord committed on the 4th of July, and then the next day, I want to say, was Xavier Watts committed July 5th. So we almost had 2, but I think Notre Dame kind of planned it out to have it the next day. So, yeah, Eric Olson, a tight end, really was down to Colorado, Notre Dame, and Stanford. He committed to Colorado. So, for Notre Dame fans, it would have been nice to get that 4-star tight end, but I'm not complaining because I didn't have to work. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're over here making big life moves and moving houses. The last thing you need is a commitment popping in
Right.
there.
Yes. The next time we do this podcast, I will be in my office. I'm pretty stoked about having an office. That's what happens if you don't have kids. You can have your own office. So.
And not write headlines that are a cheesy plays on words on 4th of July. Please tell me you did not use either of those for those commitments last year.
Heck yeah, I did. Yeah.
Killing me, Smalls.
I kind of want to pull it up right now and read you.
Okay. Let's see
what my headline is. Right now, I'm just going to kind of fill time as my page loads. How was your 4th of July? What'd you do?
I mostly stayed at home, back with the folks in Evanston, outside of Chicago. Had a few friends over the weekend. Went to some friends' places all in the backyard.
Good social distancing.
Our patio. Yes, very, very socially distanced crowds, acceptable numbers. So, successful, relaxing weekend, really. More of it's the closest thing to an extended little break since I got started here. So
I've got bad news. Patrick.
No.
Notre Dame adds commitment from CB Caleb Offord. That was my
Let's go. All right. No, just painstakingly cliched play on words headline there. I appreciate
but
it.
The opening
Good job.
opening sentence was fireworks went off on the 4th of July for Notre Dame. So there you go.
Just drive a stake through me, man. Come on.
All right, let's get into the show.
All right. Anyway, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so. Follow Mike at rivals_singer. You can follow me at Patrick Engel _ at the end. That's ENGEL_. And the best way to support this podcast is to subscribe to blueandgold.com. You can get a 60-day free trial with the promo code Irish60. That's Irish60. And as Mike mentioned, you can order our 2020 football preview at blueandgoldonline.com. So, no 4th of July commitment, July 6th commitment. Notre Dame's second offensive commitment since last October.
Yes, second. Yeah. Third tackle, total.
Alt. Yeah. What do we got to know?
There's a lot to unpack here. 6'7", 255. Certainly an intriguing height and weight going into his senior year. He probably played last year as a junior around 230. When I talked to him, a few weeks ago, he told me he's at 255. He's probably gained 5 pounds in just the past few weeks. He is working on getting bigger. This is Joe Alt from Fridley, Minnesota, Totino Grace High School. Of course, Totino is from the Totino's Pizza Roll Bag company. So I've got a 90 pack in my fridge right next to me. So I'll
Load it
probably,
up.
yeah, that's probably a good reason to start eating some pizza rolls. Notre Dame got a commitment from a kid who goes to high school that's after pizza rolls. And it's actually a really good school in the Minnesota area, private Catholic school. So Joe Alt told me that the faith part of Notre Dame was actually, that played a role, a big role for him. So the son of John Alt, who played for Iowa before a really stellar career as an offensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, two-time Pro Bowler. I believe he played his whole career for the Chiefs, 8 or 10 years or so. So Alt was a tight end last year, and I believe he was like a quarterback early in his high school career. So he is one of those guys, and Notre Dame's had him over the years, who a tight end turned offensive tackle, very athletic guys. You hope that they can put on that weight, 40, 50 pounds, and handle it well, because you just don't know. So that's part of the allure with Alt, is that he's this athletic guy. If he pans out, he'd be a really high level tackle, but there is always the chance that just doesn't quite work out. Weight doesn't work out. And then it's like, you've got Joe Alt, now he's a tight end. And that might not be what, he might not be a national championship caliber tight end. So a little risk, but a lot of reward with Joe Alt. So it really came down to Iowa and Minnesota and Notre Dame. And I love talking about this, because Iowa, like I said, that's where his dad went to school. So to beat out the alma mater is always impressive, no matter what recruiting calendar or recruiting year you're looking at. Minnesota's the local school, right? And in this 2021 cycle, so many kids are either picking the local school or the school that they know really well. And in this case with Alt, he knows Iowa so well. He's been to Iowa so many times. He's been to Minnesota a bunch of times. That's the local school. Don't believe he's ever been to Notre Dame. He might have stepped on campus before he was ever a recruit, but never taken a recruiting trip to Notre Dame. He has some family who's been to South Bend, and had some family who went to Notre Dame, aunt and uncle, and I believe his cousin. So there's some familiarity, but I mean, he's never met the coaches in person. So for Notre Dame to win this recruitment, you got to give a lot of kudos to the coaching staff for the recruiting win. I know Notre Dame fans are like, okay, Joe Alt commits, so let's go to his rivals profile, 5.53 star. It's like, not exciting from that sense. And I get that, but in my commit impact story, where I got to talk to Rivals analyst Josh Hemholt, he gave me a quote on Alt. He discussed the ranking, and the quick recap of that is we want to see him in this transition from tight end to tackle. Because like I said, he was basically like a 6 offensive lineman last year. He was at tight end in a run-heavy offense, and he was light last year. He probably played around 230, 235, which is a good size, but at 6'7", he looks like a receiver blocking a tight end, just because he's skinny, but obviously he's got the great height there. So all in all, the question has to be asked, is this player going to help Notre Dame contribute to a national championship? And with every single recruit out there, the answer is always, you don't know. But if you're going to force me to make a pick, I would say, still, I don't know. But yes, if, got to throw the if in there, he pans out like Notre Dame hopes, like that projection of, we're going to get him up to, Patrick, 305 or so, which would be about 50 pounds from where he's at right now. So certainly not someone you would expect to play as a true freshman. Whether Notre Dame's getting Joe Alt, Blake Fisher, Tommy Brockermeyer, Nolan Rucci, Tristan Lay, all these big-time offensive linemen, I don't think you would expect any of those guys to start as true freshmen. And if you are if you're relying on a 5-star to start as true freshman, either that 5-star or really any offensive lineman, that guy's either got to be really, really damn good, or your offensive line is not in a good place. So luckily for Notre Dame, They're well stocked. Alt can redshirt, and then had that sophomore, his second season, still not really be used, and then maybe third, fourth years when you could really start to see Joe Alt make an impact, Patrick.
And the thing that stands out with Alt's commitment and really recruitment to me is this. And like you said, I know you can look at the ranking and think, all right, whatever. And since this whole dead period started and now really seemingly no idea when it's going to end, Notre Dame had 3 guys commit without taking a formal recruiting trip, visit as a recruit, whatever you want to call it. Like, not
4,
counting the times
actually.
they might have stepped on campus as in some other capacity when they were a kid or before they were
4
or whatever.
4
Right.
4 of them plus the 2 grad transfers, so that's a total of 6. That's pretty impressive in my opinion.
And anyway, the 3 coming from the first 3 were defensive guys, like high school recruits. And like we mentioned, Notre Dame had 1 offense commitment prior to Alt since October. So the thing you kind of started to wonder was, when is Notre Dame going to be able to offer a kid in the middle of this, or really like start to push and turn up the heat on someone in the middle of this if they had offered previously, and impact his recruitment and land him without a visit? We'd seen it happen on defense. Now with it happened on offense. And I think some of that consternation of what's the offensive staff doing, what's going on here, is pretty quiet right now, as it should be. And if you think it quieter, of course.
I don't know what message board you're reading.
Well, nonetheless, this is not exactly good ammunition for that crowd that will never seemingly just that has the narrative.
It'll pick apart anything.
And that's fine. But here's what happened with Joe Alt. Notre Dame offered in late May and put the press on since then. Got him to commit over the school where his dad played, that is known for producing a lot of good offensive linemen, is certainly not a pauper school in the Big Ten West and all of that.
Sure.
Iowa just went 10-3 and turned his dad, of course, into one of those successful NFL linemen. Been there a ton of times. Then picking over Minnesota, where local school, they're certainly on the rise and have a lot of, traction in the sense and buzz around them right now. Another one that he's been to a lot of times.
Easy school to pick during the pandemic too.
Exactly. And Notre Dame's presence and just like entering the recruitment and what it was able to do without having one of its best assets available to it in a campus visit made both of those, all of that familiarity and plenty of good things and things to like about those other 2, not matter in the end. So to me, that's what really kind of is impressive here about getting this done, more so than who the player is, where he was ranked, what position on offense he is, of course. And just good for the offensive staff to be able to do that. We've talked a lot about how Mike Mickens has been able to make a big impact during all this after coming in as the corners coach. We certainly saw Mike Elston be able to recruit and get a kid in Jason Aigner once again, having not visited, getting him to commit here. Those guys, one, Mickens really having proven himself, just cut out for the job here, and Elston having already been kind of an established recruiter. Just good for the offensive staff to be able just to say, hey, we've been able to do this in this atmosphere, and we might have to do it again, because as Brian Kelly said last month, they're operating under the assumption that they might not host kids for the remainder of the cycle.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of read on the all commitment from a kind of a team standpoint, and less about kind of what he brings on the field, which still plenty to like there, like you said.
Yeah, I agree with you. Whether Alt is a 5-star or a 0-star, like what you're saying is true. Like talent aside, like that's an impressive recruiting win when you take that kid away from the local school that he knows well and was the first school to offer him, right?
Right.
Iowa offered him. I mean, Notre Dame offered him May 22nd. It's like 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago. So that wasn't that long ago, and they beat out. So you talk about some of the other guys who committed without taking that recruiting visit. So Jason Aigner committed to Notre Dame a few weeks back. Was it May? Commit to May? I believe he
That's
committed in
right.
May.
Right.
And Notre Dame had offered him in December, and he was going to visit in March, and he really wanted to commit. Like, I think if he wanted to, he probably it was a situation where, guys, I want to commit. It's like, all right, come visit in March for that. I believe it was that March 21st weekend that Will Shipley, Tangwall, Rucci, Spindler, everyone was going to visit for. Aigner was going to come in that weekend. It's like, all right, come in, and because Notre Dame wants to take like other than like put the pandemic aside, Notre Dame's going to take a kid after he visits. Like that's maybe have Lou on here someday and say, hey, Lou, has Notre Dame ever had a commitment without a kid visiting? Pre-pandemic stuff, and I'm sure it's happened over the
And in
years,
the
but it's
history of
very
the
rare.
tens of thousands of kids Notre Dame has recruited
Exactly.
and signed, he would be able to tell you exactly which ones.
Exactly. So, with Aigner, it's like, all right, visits aren't going to happen anytime soon. Notre Dame feels like they know Jason really, really well. So take that commitment. Got it. Ryan Barnes had visited as a kid. It was like the spring game of 2016. When Notre Dame offered him in late March, my sources on the Irish side of things felt like they really had a good feel on Barnes right away. That was a Notre Dame kid. I don't care if Mike Mickens is the coach. Not to downplay him as a recruiter because he did a really good job in that recruitment, but I don't care who the coaches are. He would have went to Notre Dame, kind of like with Blake Fisher. Like Jeff Quinn did a really good job in that recruitment. And I remember when Blake committed last summer, he told me Jeff Quinn's like a father figure to me. But still, that kid was probably going to Notre Dame no matter what. Like there's just some kids who are just Notre Dame type kids. Ryan Barnes was that. And then there is brings us to so we just talked about alt. Seems like the same kind of thing like that. That's just a Notre Dame kid. And then Philip Riley. That's the one from Notre Dame offered in March. Never been. He's probably never been in the state of Indiana, and that one just came out of nowhere. He was like about to commit to Virginia Tech, and then Notre Dame just knocked it out of the ballpark. So when we talk about these 4 high school commits who have not been on campus, Riley is the one. I mean, that one I did not see coming. This is like the week leading up to it. You start to hear more buzz, and he's like, all right, I'm going to come up on June for an official visit, which of course never happened. And the research that Philip Riley did, and looking at Notre Dame, it reaching out to kids on Instagram that he saw were students to learn more. So another Notre Dame kid, like, so it's that kind of kid. Like with Alt, it also helps that he's a Midwest guy, right? I mean, Barnes has family up in the Midwest. Riley has no connections to the Midwest or anything. Well, neither does Aigner either. So, couldn't speak more high about these 4 as young men. So to not have a recruiting trip and commit to Notre Dame, it takes a certain kid. So, I mean, we're seeing these running back offers, to kids out in Texas, and it's like, it's tough to win those recruitments. A lot of people want Notre Dame to just, bust their ass and win all these recruitments, and they're busting their ass for a lot of these kids. It's tough to win some of these when you're not the local school. So we have later in the podcast, we'll talk about a tight end prospect from the Midwest, who I do think the Irish can land without that recruiting visit. But we'll get into him. Sorry about going a little off topic here, Patrick. Just I get fired up sometimes and just get into it.
And you make a good point in the sense that those, and it's really important in this recruiting landscape that will last for who knows how long, that those Notre Dame type kids, like you say, are the ones they kind of have to get or really land a high percentage of that they target during all this. The ones who are comfortable just with what the school can give them based on the research they do and whatever they, the things they learn about it through the other committed players or their coaches, their parents, and of course, whatever Notre Dame staff would be telling them. Those are the ones that if you don't get them because they like everything about the school. They like the idea of Notre Dame because they're a Notre Dame type kid, but they go elsewhere because they think either the football is better or just a staff did a better job of them for whatever reason. Those are the ones that even in this time are gonna sting. But then again, you have ones say like an Eric Olson, where by all accounts, certainly a kid that Notre Dame would have had a great shot with in a normal cycle if he visits, but just didn't want to commit to a school he hadn't seen. And he's in Colorado. It's not exactly close.
Yeah.
Those are kind of ones that's just kind of tough to deal with. There's not really
what I don't know what else Notre Dame could have done with an Eric Olson. I don't know what else they could have done with a Will Shipley. Like some of these, it's just out of your control. Like I know me saying that will get some Notre Dame fans upset. It's like, no, you don't give up ever. You just got to keep fighting. But like they are. Like I don't know. Like, do you understand? Like if you're a coach, you can be annoying and kids not like you. Like that's a real thing. Like texting a kid 24/7, 365 isn't always a good thing. So there's so much to recruiting, and my whole life for the past 7 years I've been doing this. I still am learning more about the process. It seems like every month I'm just uncovering something new. So it's something different. Yeah.
Especially when we have a dead period that's lasted for, well, I don't even know, what is it, 3.5 months now, and probably is going to go for at least that.
Yeah, almost
All kinds of new dynamics that come out.
4 months next week. Yeah.
Jeez.
It's crazy.
You mean 4 years? You can fit Patrick Mahomes' entire 10-year extension into March 2020.
All right, Patrick. So while we're in a dead period, so recruits and coaches can't see each other in person. Luckily, there's no dead period for reporters. Well, unless your like company says you can't go out, but luckily, we've been able to go out and practice social distancing and see some prospects. So you saw Blake Fisher at the Midwest Exposure Camp in Fort Wayne. What was it? The last week of June. So right. Fisher did not need exposure, but Fisher probably needed to get out of the house and get some work in. And certainly with the knowledge of Rivals is going to be there. You were there representing blueandgold.com, which is, of course, on the Rivals Network. And our Midwest analyst, Josh Hemholt, was there. So Blake got to look, this is a fringe 5-star guy. So get to, not only get some work in, but maybe show his skills to get that 5th star. So what were like the biggest 2 or 3 takeaways? Like, so you go to the event, you leave the event, you're driving back. What'd you learn?
Yeah, like you said, this is the first work related out of office, reporting kind of work I was able to do since starting here and
wow,
all this shutdown. And before I get into Blake and kind of what I thought of him, let me tell you about Trade Last. Trade Last is a Notre Dame Idea Center startup that has pivoted its business model to a not-for-profit initiative to serve the medical responders, selflessly sacrificing themselves during this crisis. They're doing so by providing free vacations post-crisis for the responders so they can recover from the trauma they have experienced and reconnect with their families. Please consider helping this important initiative started by Notre Dame alums and staffed by Notre Dame student volunteers by visiting their website, tradelast.com, and donating time in your second home, spreading the word to others, or supporting their GoFundMe page. Again, that's tradelast.com, TradeLasts.com. Thank you for your support for this deserving Notre Dame initiative. So Blake Fisher, number 22 overall ranked player in the 2021 class. I got out there to see him early on a Saturday morning in the offensive and defensive line portion of a camp that went all day in Fort Wayne, kind of having a lot of guys from Indiana, Michigan, Western Ohio kind of area coming in there. It's for a lot of them their first chance to get some in-person work in since the shutdown and that would have been at that point 3.5 months. Biggest thing that stood out to me about Blake was, well, he's big. I mean, he measured in at 6'7" in the camp, listed at 330 pounds, and he looks every bit of it. So you you just walk into the building, and I did, and just kind of looking for him, and you can just instantly see who he is because he's just so much bigger than everybody else.
Yeah.
But you look at that, and it's really about how well he moves and how light on his feet he is
Yeah.
at that size. Where, I mean, obviously you see the frame to play at tackle, but the athleticism and nimble and feet and clearly well-developed footwork that you see there is really what stood out to me about just how kind of gracefully he moves at that size, and of course mixing in power as well. And you might expect it at camp in this sense, where most of the other guys who had either had Power 5 offers or kind of trending that way were on the offensive line side of it,
Right.
and kind of a setting you expect Blake to kind of show off a little bit, and he definitely did. Really dominated the one-on-one reps. Did not look at all like he had missed he was too rusty or had been, the shutdown had really negatively affected him at all. That was not the case. So really impressed with Blake, and kind of interesting just to see him just kind of work in those settings where he's a naturally affable guy who's, encouraging in the lines when just talking to the guys as they're waiting to do their reps or encouraging in drills. Certainly someone who's, you see the persona on social media, and like whenever you would talk to him and can attest to him being a fun interview, that kind of certainly just shows up of really who he is. And I'll tell you the one moment that was kind of summed it up basically is there's one rep. It's in the middle of the one-on-one work where I believe it was after Blake, he's working at left tackle, just shoves his man off to the side, and right after the snap, it's within a second and a half, like the play's over. One of the coaches who's running the camp, just walks by. He was watching from behind at that point, and just kind of, to no one in particular, just says, just different. And that's what it was. He was different than really anybody else in that setting. And there were some good other offensive linemen there that impressed. So overall, the first time I had seen Blake, very impressed with not only his conditioning after 3 months of a time where that could easily askew anyone, but still being able just to, show off the natural movement and graceful movement and quick feet that he has at that size.
Patrick, was that the rep that you just talked about? Was that the one that kind of went viral on Twitter where everyone's like, "Oh, he held him," and is that the same one?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I mean, they kind of blend together in a sense, but I mean, you realistically could have said that after a few different reps.
I mean, Coach Twitter never fails. I mean, like
some butthurt people out there.
I mean, it's
smart ass people.
I got better things to do with my time than try to roast some kid for 3 seconds. Like, yeah, Blake kind of got him around the neck real quick, but he had his hand there and then he let go. It wasn't like some egregious hold and then throw. And everyone's like, "Why you got a 140-pound kid going up against Blake Fisher?" Well, like, what's Blake supposed to do? Like, say, "No, I am not going up against you." Like, no, that's disrespectful to that kid. Now, the throw might have been a little disrespectful, but
I mean, it's a 200-pound size difference. Almost like you can't help it, right?
Yeah. So Twitter's gonna Twitter. I mean, it's what it is.
Just another day on Twitter.com.
Yeah.
Never fails.
Exactly.
A couple days after the Midwest Exposure Camp, where I was able to see Blake, you ventured out for what I think was the first time since the whole thing to see another Notre Dame commit. That was Tyler Buchner, the quarterback, at a very watered down
Tyler
Elite
Buchner.
11.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, some guy.
Yeah, we see Tyler Buchner and Blake Fisher in the matter of 4 days. It's pretty good. That's going from 0 to 100 real quick.
So a watered down Elite 11 where
the
guys threw probably half the number of passes that they would in a normal one that's in conjunction with the opening and everything.
Yeah.
But still, a chance to see him live. And it's a setting that, all right, it's not a game, but interesting nonetheless. What did you think?
Yeah, I'll speak quickly first about the Elite 11 to provide some context. So it was looking at the forecast on Sunday, this would have been Sunday, June 28th. We were in, I believe it's pronounced Murfreesboro, just south of Nashville.
The home of Middle Tennessee.
Yes, Middle Tennessee State. That's correct.
NCAA tournament star Giddy Potts.
Oh, is that when they upset? Was it Michigan State?
Yeah, it sure was. Yep.
Gotcha.
Giddy Potts.
Anyway. Yeah. So the radar for the week was not looking very good. Like there was a good chance all 3 days were going to get rained out, and there wasn't really like a good indoor situation. And I'll get to that. So the rain, first of all, wasn't looking good. Then you add on the pandemic stuff. So it's like the media had to be in the stands with the parents, and that didn't make any sense. Why wouldn't you just put us down on the track, which there was no one on the track? We're now walking back and forth each other and interacting with the parents is all up there because they're walking by us. Like, it doesn't make any sense for social distance, but that's neither here nor there. And then you have the fact that there was no athletes from the opening. So typically there's like a 7-on-7 tournament the third day. That was replaced with this. I don't think they ever officially named it. I called it the Gauntlet Drill. My colleague EJ Holland, big fan from Notre Dame fans. They just love him. Just kidding.
Beloved, truly beloved.
Just kidding. EJ called it he called it the Target Challenge. So it was like there's a little tire, and you got to throw it through the tire. And one of them was like you have to do a RPO and throw it, or you have to, like, they called it the Patrick Mahomes. You have to like fade to your left and plant your feet real quick and throw it. And I mean, it was truly like a gauntlet. It was brutal. So they had that instead of a 7-on-7 tournament. It was not super ideal. So you just have all these things that just, for me, covering my first Elite 11 made the experience not that great. But for the athletes, yeah, that third day wasn't what you would have hoped. The second day was a pro day where each quarterback had 19 passes to throw. So Buchner threw his 19, marching down the field, specific routes. I mean, every quarterback did the same first throw, the same second throw. So same exact thing there. But Buchner was probably, I want to say, the 15th quarterback who went. His group was later. So by then, most of the receivers have gone home. Everyone who's still there is tired. At the beginning few routes, you've had coaches running the routes. So the McCarthy went first. JJ McCarthy, a Michigan quarterback commit. Everyone's got their eyes on the very first months. It's much more exciting. Well, by the 15th guy, and now it's like 10 o'clock, like everyone's just beat. So there's just a lot of things that played into it. Now I'm backtracking, going from day 3, the Target Challenge, day 2, the pro day. And then day 1 was, they had like stations. So each group had about 4 quarterbacks. There's 5 groups of 4 quarterbacks. Or maybe it was 4 groups of 5 quarterbacks. So it was Buchner, Notre Dame's quarterback commit, Miller Moss, USC commit, Caleb Williams, who just committed to Oklahoma. You had Jay Allen, who's a baseball commit for Florida. And the last one is Luke Altmaier from Florida State quarterback commit. So that first day, one of the stations was like they're taking pictures. One of them was goal line throws. It was like there was one station where you threw some crossing routes, and that was the very first one that Buchner did. And that's probably when Buchner looked the best the entire week. He was super sharp to start it. So that's kind of the context, the Elite 11. I would say for the entire experience for the quarterbacks, the actual throwing portion was maybe 20%. There was so much of life lessons with Trent Dilfer, and I'm sure lots of Zoom calls with guys like Yogi Roth, who was he was a receivers coach at USC. I can't remember who he played for in college, and now he's like the Pac-12 Network's version of Kirk Herbstreit. Let's see. So yeah, there's a lot of X's and O's stuff and life lessons. So I would say about the actual competition is about 20% of it. And then who was won MVP was 50% based on film, because they said it was like a year-long competition for the Elite 11. So Buchner was in the final Elite 11. He didn't have the strongest week, which I'll get to here in a second, but I talked to Trent Dilfer afterwards, and he said that Buchner has one of the most impressive junior films that he's ever seen. And with a lot of these guys, like they can make, Billy down the street sound like he, should get an offer from Alabama. Like they can really talk people up. But of course, Buchner's junior film is ridiculous to be completely fair. It was, junior film is probably the best I've ever seen as well. So getting into Buchner's performance, it was up and down. It was up and down there. I put up on our YouTube page almost every throw from day one. There was a couple I missed. And then every single throw from day 2 and day 3. So that pro day and the target challenge, every single throw. So everyone can see what I saw. And it definitely did seem like there was something different with his release. I saw him at our Los Angeles Rivals camp March 1st. And I went back and compared the two. And, I mean, everyone's armchair quarterbacking, armchair coaching Buchner's mechanics here. And it's fair.
The same people who want to call Blake Fisher for holding on Twitter on a Saturday, of course.
So
that Venn diagram is a perfect circle.
Yeah. So and it's fair. Like,
yeah,
I want
right.
I want people to. I challenge.
This
fans,
is much more open
stuff.
for parsing for critiquing.
Sure. So I want fans to look. Here's what I think. Here's what this guy thinks. Like, what do you think? Like, be an informed fan. And watch stuff. Don't just like go off what people say. So my opinion was that the biggest thing was it did seem like he was pushing a little bit, but the biggest thing was when you're a right-handed thrower, that left foot is your plant foot and that right foot's you're following through. He would throw and he would plant both feet. So he's just throwing his all arm. Like his right foot would kind of twist a little bit, but he would never drive it. So he's just throwing with all arm when he's in the pocket. Now, when he gets out and moves, when he would, like a rusher, and for those listening and not watching on YouTube, I'm doing air quotes, when a rusher would come at him, which was pre-planned, he would, step in the pocket, roll out, and he had, in my opinion, the best throw of the entire week. I'm sure if you're on social media or if you watch the YouTube video from that day 2 pro day, he steps up, rolls right, throws it on a dime, 48 yards on a rope. It was beautiful. That one, he jumps up a little bit in the air even, and he's using his full body strength, arm and his legs to throw that perfect pass. But it was when he was in the pocket where he was just kind of pushing it with his arm and not using his legs. So it's actually kind of impressive that he was able to make all these throws with just his arm. So when he gets back to, using his lower body, and I mentioned the Rivals camp that I saw in that, and I went back and watched that film, he was using, like, you could see his right foot following through with his throws. And again, I'm now armchair coaching here. But that was my biggest takeaway. A lot of people are talking about always throwing sidearm. Look, newsflash, people, Tyler Buchner has always done that. Like, I posted like a tweet of him warming up, and he was like throwing really sidearm now. I mean, we're talking like that. That's always how he warms up. Like kids practice all these Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers throws now. So that's not new. So the throwing motion, a lot of this stuff I'm not too worried about with any of it really. Now, if it doesn't get fixed or tweaked, I should say, then there's a problem potentially, but I'm not concerned. This is minimal concern for me, whether it's his, quarterback coaches now or Tommy Reese at Notre Dame. This is going to get figured out. When I saw Tyler March 1st, he was very, very, very good. He was still solid. He made some really good throws, but there's just something off. That's my opinion. I think it was more of the not using his lower body. to have that power and velocity on his throws. So that makes
Anyone
him
who
better.
wants to check it out can go look at all of the throws you shot from that. Your souvenir from the week, rainy video. Shot from
Yeah.
the Galaxy Brain vantage point that the 11 folks decided to put you in.
Oh yeah, it wasn't ideal. Yeah, and I brought a camcorder to film it, and then I left the cord to hook it up to my computer at home. So that's not really.
Tough scene.
Yeah.
But
So
overall, I think that makes a lot of sense in that a throwing motion in that sense is a more, fairer to examine than, taking a clip of some kid in a one-on-one of an offensive line and just saying, all right, holding. It is something that stood out even when watching the far away video, that this is at least interesting, and probably that's something that, once Buchner gets on campus, that I'm sure they will look to address and just get more comfortable. And even if like this is the outlier thing we saw him just throwing with his arm in a sense, to ensure that it's just, an outlier and that's it, and that there's no, bad habit that could approach on getting formed in anything.
yeah,
Because even like you said, it's impressive that he's making all these throws with his arm. You can see plenty of arm talent. And I think you'd much rather be in the spot when talking about a quarterback's upside of being able to make all those throws on the run where he can get planted at awkward angles and throw it, and needing a little bit of work cleaning up feet in the pocket, than have it be the other way around where you're comfortable in the pocket, but when you have to throw on the move, you got nothing.
yeah, yeah,
One of those, you see a lot more upside, and it's in the mold that you kind of saw from and you described from Buchner there.
yeah. I'll also add, and I said this going in, a couple things. One, no matter what happens, unless Buchner just absolutely goes out there and he can't throw a ball, otherwise there's not much to take away. And Buchner could throw. Like he made the best pass of the week. There's that one throw again that kind of went viral on Twitter, where it's like, yep, that works. Yeah, everyone's excited about this. So that alone is like, yeah, Tyler Buchner can really play football. Like, guys, like let's not overreact here. So coming into the camp, I was like, guys, whether he's great or amazing or nothing, like, or he's just not good, it's a camp after everyone's rusty. Like, there's no reason to overreact. Of course, some people are still overreacting, and they're certainly free to do that if they want. But in my opinion, there's nothing to overreact about. The second thing is, this isn't a camp that best suits Tyler Buchner. It's Buchner is the best dual threat quarterback in the country, in my opinion. So if we're talking about, let's have these guys run 40s and actually run read options, but of course there's no really reason to, because this isn't real game. Like, this is a passing camp. Like, what are you going to run a read option and tuck it and run? Like, well, how cool is that? Like, there's really no point to do that in this camp, or there's no reason for these guys to run a shuttle drill or run a 40. Like, there's really no point. Like, it's for throwing. So like, some people like this they should be running more so Tyler can look good. It's like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, this isn't a combine. This is it's a quarterback camp. So, all in all, to recap everything I just said really quickly, there's really not a ton to take away. It was, Buchner probably threw 80 or 90 times over 3 days. So it wasn't a ton. And the mechanic stuff, I'm not worried about. I understand Notre Dame fans getting concerned about it because of recent history, especially, Phil, had some issues last year. So I understand where Irish fans are coming from, but in my slightly informed opinion, I'm not worried about it right now.
A blip on the radar at this point that would be probably a while away from becoming anything that causes real outrage, problems, whatever, anything like that.
I agree.
All right, before we get out of here, we're going to run through a few other quick things that happened in the last couple of weeks, really, of Notre Dame recruiting. First, a word from our sponsor, Augie's. Looking for that unique Notre Dame item for the Irish fan in your life? Visit Augie's Locker Room, the country's #1 Notre Dame memorabilia shop. They have the largest selection of Notre Dame helmets, dating all the way back to the turn of the century up to present day, including the Shamrock Series helmet. They also have stadium benches, frame tickets, one-of-a-kind Rockney items, sign items, and many other unique pieces. If it is ND, they have what you are looking for. Visit them online at augieslockerroom.com or call 574-277-NDND. That's augieslockerroom.com. All right, a few quick things here that have happened in the last couple of weeks pertaining to Notre Dame's recruiting efforts. Mike, you put in a Rivals Futurecast pick for Notre Dame to land a second tight end in the class, joining Kane Barong, and that is Mitchell Evans from Ohio. What's there to know there? He's Notre Dame's most recent 2021 offer. And Mike, why are you feeling confident that he eventually sides with Notre Dame?
Well, we talked earlier about like someone like Eric Olson out in Denver, hard to win that recruitment with these kids that are far away. Of course, like Philip Riley's kind of that one was a little bit different, but with him being down in Florida. But here's someone in the Akron, Ohio area, about 4 hours from South Bend, can certainly just get in the car one day this week, and he might hint later this week. Of course, can't make the contact with coaches, like can't see them face to face or anything because of the dead period. But I mean, that doesn't stop anyone from just going to campus, and the bookstore's open. I think everything else is pretty much closed, but still walk around campus, see the town. I mean, I think they're even allowed to like FaceTime with the coaches and just literally just walk around campus, and it's like you're with them. Obviously, it's different. It's not as good as a real visit, but it's as good as it can be right now. We saw a 2022 tight end who we'll talk about here in a little bit do that. Tristan Bounds has visited campus, who's now a Michigan commit, but he drove to Notre Dame in Michigan to just kind of walk around campus. This is what these kids are doing now. Brock Bowers, a tight end who Notre Dame likes, is flying to Georgia. He's flying out from Napa, California to Georgia. So this is what the kids can do. But in terms of Evans, yeah, feeling really good there. He's got Notre Dame in his top 10, but in reality, I think it's probably more like a top 2 or 3. I think maybe Michigan State, maybe Florida State, but thinking Notre Dame's chances there are really good. Parents love Notre Dame. He loves Notre Dame. Think that one really shook up his recruitment when he got that offer. What was it, just last week?
Right. And kind of going off back to Joe Alt for a minute, certainly seems like another example of Notre Dame being able to enter recruitment later and just kind of alter it by, for lack of a better term, kind of flexing what it has and getting comfort and besting comfort with other schools like a Florida State. There's all kinds of allure there of just winning a national title this past decade, playing Clemson every year, whatever. And Michigan State, not all too far from Akron. Obviously, still has to play out, but
yeah,
certainly seems like things are headed that way unless anything unexpectedly changes here.
You had a great pun there. You said altered.
Swish.
Oh, man, I thought you did it on purpose, but then you just kept talking. I was like, oh, yeah, that was an accident.
I'll take the retroactive credit for being that creative. Yes. Speaking of Notre Dame kids, one that is, you could say a Notre Dame kid in the sense that he's the kid of a Notre Dame player, Bobby Taylor Jr., the 2022 cornerback out of the Houston area, whose dad, of course, played for Notre Dame in the 90s. Not as much good news here, though. He left Notre Dame out of his early top 12. Seems, at first glance, not great. Mike, what to make of this? Is it kind of a thing that's like, oh my God, a Notre Dame legacy left the kid out of his top 12? Or is it somewhere less extreme?
Yeah. Whether Notre Dame offered super early or not, like maybe they would have made the top 12, but or should Notre Dame be aiming for 8th place in recruitment? Like, I don't think it really I don't think either way that Bobby Taylor Jr. would have been going to Notre Dame. I mean, because they offered just a few weeks ago, and I know he was probably a little frustrated with the timing of that offer. He told me he reached out to Notre Dame. It's like, hey, like, guys are offering some guys in Texas. Like, what's going on here? But even if they would have offered a year ago, some kids just want to kind of blaze their own trails. So he'll probably end up in Big 12 country.
And when you have and this is just the case with legacies in general, I think it's one of the more overblown things. And it's like, oh, got to get this kid. He's a legacy, or he's a legacy. He's gonna come to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't do anything about it if the kid, like you said, wants to do his own thing,
Joe Alt.
or he's a legacy.
Joe Alt's not going to Iowa.
Exactly. And exactly the other Notre Dame just benefited from a case of exactly this.
Sure.
Or you have a kid like Taylor who's a legacy, but they don't live anywhere near there. He likes Texas, I don't know, and wants to stay in that area. And in that case, you can't really do anything about it. But it struck me as just a little, not great that you don't make one a top 12. Like this isn't a top 3 of a kid's going into his senior year.
Yeah.
And like you said, he seemed to have some initial interest that, all right, maybe he's not going to end up going there. But if he was willing to explore, like take time to do it, and of course, who knows when that would have been able to happen. But he's a 2022 kid. You figure they'd be able to visit at some point before he signs.
I said on our message board, I was like, it's not a good look. Whether, like I said, does it matter if they're playing for 7th or 8th place in recruitment? Because I don't think Notre Dame would really had a good shot either way. But yeah, it's not a good look, and I understand fans being like, kind of frustrated there. So
right, and this is a kid who had some interest, and unless the staff thinks he can't play at all, which seems unlikely, given where he's probably going to end up. Right, they offered him. Then it just kind of seems a little off there, and not to go full disaster mode or sound like we're trying to spin it away from that. It's overall not great, but like you said, nonetheless, not like this was a kid they were going to land and he got so mad at them because he slow played or anything.
Sure.
Staying in Texas, Notre Dame's commit from the Lone Star State, defensive end David Abiara out of the Dallas area, picked up an offer from the hometown school and the alma mater of yours truly, SMU. A lot of smoke there about Oklahoma previously in the spring. SMU now jumps in, seems just generally speaking kind of bizarre for a group of 5 team to hop in there for a Power 5 commitment. But Mike, what do you think? I'm sure this wasn't just an aimless thing by the SMU staff, or was it?
My biggest takeaway was that, wait, SMU hadn't offered yet? Like, what?
Yeah, right.
Like, what are they doing? Like, Notre Dame offering Bobby Taylor late. It's like, that's interesting. But, Bobby Taylor's 2022. Like, he could have even played junior season. Notre Dame didn't get to see him this spring because there's no spring evaluation period. But David Abiara, SMU hasn't offered. So what to make of it? Certainly, I understand some people and fans on our message board have said, they're probably offering for a reason, right? Yeah, maybe. Texas threw their hat in the ring kind of after the smoke started going out there that Abiara was maybe backing off his commitment and looking at Oklahoma, but still committed to Notre Dame. That's the update. Abiara is still committed to Notre Dame, and we'll just have to see where it goes from here. I don't think there's a whole lot else to add. I mean, he's still committed to Notre Dame.
I mean, even if it's not a thing where, all right, he wants to go and SMU is going to get him and flip him or whatever, which certainly doesn't sound like it's the case from what you just described. Just an insurance policy of, all right, let's say this thing gets bad. He decides he wants to stay close to home. Yep, all right, sure. He's going to open it up. Then it's just us against Oklahoma and Texas, and we'll see what happens. So
SMU is doing all right recruiting. They got the was it Preston Stone as their 2021 quarterback? Notre Dame offered 2 quarterbacks in the 2021 class, Buchner and Preston Stone.
Staying local, but before before that was cool, I guess, and before that became the popular move among when all of the shutdown and coronavirus concerns set in. One more quick item here, going to 2022 again, a target who has certainly not been shy about expressing his high interest in the Irish. Jack Nickel from your home state and current state, Georgia.
Yep.
Went up on his own to visit last week. What should we know about where things kind of stand with him, besides, of course, that he's interested enough to go pay his way up there, and that he's already been one of those guys you identified as possibly one of the earlier starts for the 2022 class?
Yeah, I've got a future cast pick in for him to land at Notre Dame. Put that in a couple weeks ago. Feel like there's nothing like hush hush, like he's committed, at least to my knowledge. But feel pretty good about it that he's going to end up at Notre Dame. So he has family in Ohio. So Jack and his parents and siblings drove to Ohio to see grandparents, and then made the trip to, they did Purdue, Notre Dame, and then it was stayed in Chicago, and then they did Wisconsin, Iowa, and maybe they did one other school. Ohio State, they did the very first day of that trip. So visit a bunch of schools, kind of see the campuses, and because that's what he was going to do this summer. That's pretty common. Kids going to their junior year want to go camp and visit a bunch of schools. So good for Jack for being able to do that. And certainly love Notre Dame. Go to blueandgold.com. I have that story from last week that you can find by clicking on the More News button down on the left side and scroll down and find that story on Jack. So feel good about Notre Dame's chances there in 2022. So you got Kane Brong in 2021. I got a future cast pick in for Evans for the 2021 class. And then Nickel for 2022. So new tight ends coach John McNulty could just be babysitting for the next year. So if he gets all these guys soon.
Pretty good spot to be in for a coach who just joined the staff a few months ago, already having made an impact. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Mike, let's get out of here. Busy week. Hopefully for you next week, finally getting out to see some guys.
Yeah.
And checking out.
Yeah. Don't want to say just yet if it doesn't happen, but local guys in state of Georgia, a lot of schools are really just working out. Maybe they're starting to get to do some 7-on-7 inter-squad, so not like against other schools. But we'll see some recruits here in the state of Georgia. But in the meantime, everybody, make sure you pick up your copy of the 2020 Blue and Gold Illustrated Football Preview. Go to blueandgold.com, Notre Dame Rivals website, and we have a link right up at the top. You really can't miss it to order your copy. It says now available the 2020 Notre Dame Football Preview. There's print and digital options, so you can just get a digital copy for $5. That's kind of the deal of the year. So make sure to pick that up.
Or you can go directly to bluegoldonline.com. And digital options, like you said, available as well as print. That's going to do it. As always, best way to support this podcast is to subscribe to blueandgold.com. You can get a free 60-day trial with the promo code Irish60. That's Irish60. You can follow us on Twitter at BGI News. You can follow Mike at Rivals_Singer. And you can follow me at Patrick Engel _ that's ENGEL _. We'll be back with you in a couple of weeks. Hopefully Mike will have been out to see some more guys in the Atlanta area. Till then, take care.